Do you believe that as a fact, that Jesus died for our sins?
There are elements of the texts that I don't claim to understand. What my experience has been that the more deeply I look into these texts, the more I learn. That doesn't mean that I can proclaim full knowledge of what the texts proclaim. But I don't think, and I'm not trying to play a trick here, you know, I watched an interview that you did recently where you were talking, I think it was with Piers Morgan, yeah, about the complexities of trying to understand this strange realm of quantum phenomena, right? And we have a trouble with quantum phenomena because at the micro level, things don't act like things act at the macro level. So they escape our intuitions. And one of the things you said was that although it's perhaps even impossible for creatures embodied like us to get a grip on quantum phenomena, the strange wave-particle duality, for example, we have ample evidence that it works, and stellarly. And I would say exactly the same thing about the biblical texts.
Oh.
If they run...
So, okay. So, excuse me. Think about, so what they're talking about here is, excuse me, quantum physics, right? They have these things like it's weird. Like sometimes though light will act as a particle, and sometimes it'll act as a wave, and sometimes it'll almost do this both at the same time. So it's weird. Good evening, TBS. Hey, oh no, it's okay. You don't have to watch. It's all right. Hey, dude, don't worry about it. You can watch whatever you want or whatever, you know, or miss it, skip it. It doesn't matter, man. But I'm glad to have you when you do have a chance. That's wonderful. So thanks for coming. Yeah, that's the problem. You know, it's good to be smart. It's very good to be smart. But it's when you think you're smart, that's when you're in trouble. But anyway, so what these guys are talking about, so quantum physics, right? You have this idea like the light will act as a wave or as a particle. And sometimes it's almost acting like it's this both at the same time. It's very strange, right? So they act as if, okay, that's something we cannot possibly wrap our minds around. It defies logic. And yet it seems to work, quote unquote, work, right? So that, for example, they use those kind of calculations to split the atom and give us nuclear power and all those things. So they're saying, okay, even though this thing doesn't work according to our understanding of logic, it still works, right? It still works. So therefore, it's something. There's something there. And then Peterson is trying to say that's just like the Bible. We can't understand it, but it works. As in, he's trying to say it works in society or something like that. You know, like it works to make us better people or something. So that's what Peterson's getting at when he said that. Okay, let's see what Dawkins says.
Works and stellarly. And I would say exactly the same thing about the biblical texts.
Oh.
If they run into a mystery, like there's a horizon of mystery, which I do not claim to penetrate, but insofar as I've been able to understand the text, every time I make a improvement in understanding, it reveals something to me that's just like shattering.
Quantum physics is deeply mysterious, and you're saying that biblical texts are deeply mysterious. The difference is quantum physics, the predictions you derive from quantum physics are fulfilled to the umpteenth decimal place.
Mm-hmm.
The umpteenth decimal place, I mean, I think it was Richard Feynman says, equivalent to predicting the width of North America to the nearest hair's breadth.
Mm-hmm,
Now,
right.
that's impressive. That's
no doubt.
The mystery there, as it were, gains its credentials by its predictions. The mysteries of the Bible don't have any credentials at all, as far as I can make out.
Well, I guess the credentials that I would put...
No, that's not true. That's not true. For example, the Bible has predicted things. They've prophesied things. For instance, the life and death of Jesus Christ was predicted in the Bible. Oh, yeah, you saw it. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably going to get quite a bit of play now because it was just yesterday. I didn't realize this was just yesterday. But anyway, so the Bible does have predictions, and it makes predictions. It predicted Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. It predicted, for example, other things that are interesting too, is like Daniel chapter 8, right? There's a prediction there of Alexander the Great and his empire. and how his empire, not only that his empire would rise and take out the other empires like the Persians and stuff like that, but also Daniel 8, right? He predicts also that the Alexander's empire would break up into four groups, four like kingdoms, and that's exactly what happened. And it's for that reason that people can't really wrap their minds around that prophecy. So most scholars now will say that Daniel, that part of Daniel from 7 or 8 until the end, was written in the 2nd century. Because that way they can say, okay, well, it was probably written after Alexander. You know, but if you look at the text and the way it's written, even the language they use and everything, it's from that period. It's from that period of the Babylonian exile, like the 6th century, you know? But anyway, or the 5th century, but anyway.
You made a...
The mysteries of the Bible don't have any credentials at all, as far as I can make out.
Well, I guess the credentials that I would put... You made a statement a couple of months ago that I found very interesting. And I don't claim to understand it, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot with it. You said that you were a cultural Christian. Okay, and so that raised a number of questions in my mind. You know, and the first question was...
You are changing the subject.
No, I'm not. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I may be leaping outside of the topic a bit to get back to it.
We can do cultural Christianity, but I think I have a list of questions that you wanted to ask, and that is one of them. But I think Professor Dawkins did ask you...
referring to the predictive...
Wait, what's going on?
To understand it, and I'm not trying to put you on...
Sorry, I'm trying to...
Well, I guess...
Okay, so now he just said that the Bible doesn't have any predictions or something like that.
Credentials that I would put... You made a statement a couple of months ago that I found very interesting. And I don't claim to understand it, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot with it. You said that you were a cultural Christian. Okay, and so that raised a number of questions in my mind. You know, and the first question was...
You are changing the subject.
No, I'm not. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I may be leaping outside of the topic a bit to get back to it.
We can do cultural Christianity, but I think I have a list of questions that you wanted to ask, and that is one of them. But I think Professor Dawkins did ask you...
You were referring to the predictive power and to the utility of the stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually what I was trying to zero in on.
Okay, we talked about the actual predictive power of the Bible, like it literally predicts historical events before they occur, right? So that's the literal power of the Bible and why it's literally supernatural, right? But now he's going to try and say something about how the Bible has some utilitarian value in our society, like it's going to make our society better, and therefore that's why we should acknowledge the Bible. You know what I mean? So let's listen to what he said. That
was the point. Well, it seemed to me that your proclamation that you were a cultural Christian was a recognition and a statement that you had found something in the culture that had been derived from Christianity that you had an affinity with, and that there's some reason for that. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, well, what do you think that Christianity got right that allows you to make a statement like that? I mean, I know that there's differences perhaps in what we both think about the ultimate veracity of the biblical stories. Maybe there isn't differences. Like, it would take a lot of conversation to figure this out, but what did you mean?
These guys are such babblers, you know? But yeah, okay. So whatever. So now he's going to try to get this answer out of Dawkins. Why did you say you're a cultural Christian, Dawkins, if you don't think it's any value there?
By that, like, what do you think that Christianity got right that would enable you to make a statement like that?
Virtually nothing. I meant by that no more than that I'm brought up in a Christian culture. I went to Christian schools. I therefore know my way around the Bible. I know my way around the Book of Common Prayer. I know the hymns. That's all. I don't value Christianity as a truth system at all.
Okay, so let me ask.
Wow. Well, I guess as a truth system, he doesn't value it all. Like, I don't know. Like, you have to be completely ignorant of history to think that Christianity had no positive influence on our world. You know, it's just ridiculous. Like, even like, I understand, yeah, you're an atheist or whatever, you don't believe in God or whatever, but to try to act as if Christianity didn't make this world a better place is ludicrous. It's absurd. Okay, it's like, if you try to make those kind of claims, You just don't understand human history. You just don't get it, you know?
Ask you about that, because maybe that's true and perhaps it's not. So the first question is, like, do you think that there are any marked differences between cultural traditions that would enable you to rank order them in terms of their ethical validity?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so for example, we could contrast mainstream UK Christianity with Islamic fundamentalism.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a hierarchy.
There is a hierarchy.
Okay, a hierarchy that
So now he's admitting that there are some cultures that are better than others. Fundamentalist Islam is inferior to like Western liberal Christian Britain in today's world.
points to what?
Well, in the case of Islam, I dislike any religion which punishes apostasy with death, that throws gay people off high buildings, that practices clitoridectomy. That seems to me to place Islam on a lower level than Christianity, but that's not to say anything very positive about Christianity.
Well,
I wouldn't say he's called Christianity evil yet, but there are many people who do, for sure. But what he's not going to try to say that Christianity, I mean, he might try to say that Christianity is evil, but not as bad as like fundamentalism or fundamental Islam or whatever, but fundamentalist Islam. But I don't know. Anyways.
It might be to say something positive about Christianity. Like, I think that question is open, because you might ask yourself, what did Christianity get right that led it away from those particular presumptions and towards something?
I wouldn't say modern science came from the Gregorian monks, but modern universities came from like the schools that the monks had. The monk schools became what we now call universities in Europe. And science certainly did come from Christianity. That's certainly true, but these people won't admit it, but that is true. Hey, Sal, what's up, brother? God bless you, my man.
It right that led it away.
Lower level than Christianity, but that's not to say anything very positive about Christianity.
Well, it might be to say something positive about Christianity. Like, I think that question is open, because you might ask yourself, what did Christianity get right that led it away from those particular presumptions and towards something that you regard as more ethically appropriate? Like, this isn't a trivial question.
It's a very modest claim. There's not very much. I mean, to be better than a religion that throws gay people off high buildings is not really a very virtuous achievement.
So wait. So he's saying that, okay, Christianity is better than them, but it's not better than like atheism. I guess that's what he's saying. I guess what he believes, and it seems, of course, this must be what he believes, right? That atheism and reason are superior to a Christian worldview, I guess.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true, because if you look at the barbarism that characterizes the human past, you might think that any progression whatsoever towards something approximating mercy and tolerance is nothing short of a bloody miracle.
Well,
like, people are pretty ruthless, and so are our chimpanzee cousins.
Yes, they are.
Right. So we move forward into the light with great difficulty.
Yes,
and the fact that we can take that for granted now, and that it seems self-evident and deserving of faint praise, it's not so clear to me that that's a reasonable proposition.
Okay, let's grant the faint praise, but that has nothing to do with the truth value. And what I care about is the truth value. I see no truth value in the claims of Christianity, the virgin birth, the resurrection, the miracles. Do you believe in any of those? Do you believe Jesus was born a virgin?
Of course he was born a virgin. Born of a virgin? Yes, he was that as well. Hey, Liliana, God bless you. God is love with boundaries which this fallen world doesn't want to abide by. Liberty and moral ethic is all being inverted. Yeah, I know. It's true. So sad. Yeah, I know. Harvard and like Princeton, all those churches, all those schools were most of the Ivy League in America, well, they were all like seminaries when they first were formed. You know, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all those schools, you know?
As I said before,
and even in Toronto, even in Canada, like University of Toronto, McGill, and all the best schools in Toronto, in Canada, were also like that. Most of the schools all over the world.
As I said before, there are elements of the text that I don't feel qualified to comment on. My experience has been that the more, like, I know from a metaphorical perspective and from a mythic perspective what the story of the virgin birth means, and I accept that. I know, for example,
see that, like, this is the problem. Like, when, if you don't believe that the virgin birth just was a fact, right? And you try to be like Jordan Peterson and try to think, okay, it wasn't that it really happened, but it was put into the story to teach us a lesson or something like that. That's what he's trying to kind of get at, right? And that's a bad way to think of it, because you can think of it so many different ways. They'll think of it like, oh, I mean, it's because sex is bad, and so they needed to have a woman that was pure to have the child. And it's like there's things like there's parts of that that are somewhat true, but that's not what it's about, right? But if you don't understand that it's literally true and it's because God did it, if you don't get that and believe the Bible, you won't understand the story. And trying to make the story into something else to justify why you think Christianity is good or something, that's bad. That's worse. It makes it worse. It'll come up with all these weird conclusions in your head, and you'll have all these weird reasonings and weird morals to come out of it, you know? Anyway, let's see what he says.
Perspective, what the story of the virgin birth means. And I accept that. I know, for example, that any culture that doesn't hold the image of the woman and infant sacred dies. And I don't know how that needs to be expressed in a form.
So any culture that doesn't hold the image of the woman and the infant dies. Is that true? Is that true? The woman and the infant is held sacred, I guess, by the Catholic Church or something. And so that society has not died. That's true, but it will. But what he's saying, I guess he's trying to say that, so there's something about the Virgin Mary and the infant Jesus imagery that is related to like upholding women and childbirth and the value of human life or something like that, as if that's what the value of Christianity was. When you know what I mean? So he's trying to I don't know, this is weird, but there's shills anyway.
Sacred dies. And I don't know how that needs to be expressed in a form.
Do you mean that you don't know?
Well, let me ask you about that, because truth, this is something I talked with Sam Harris about too. Truth, as we know, is a tricky business. Do you think there are differences in the truth claims between different writers of fiction? Like, is Dostoevsky more profound than?
Well, I wouldn't call fiction truth claims anyway. I mean, these are.
Then on what grounds do we rank order the fiction in terms of quality? Like, Dostoevsky is a profound purveyor of fiction on the philosophical front, unbelievably deep and profound. Yes, there's something true about what he's writing about.
It's nothing to do with the truth that science is concerned with. The truth of science is the truth that gets us to the moon. I mean, this is nothing to do with.
So now what Peterson is saying is that, okay, when we read a fictional story like Dostoevsky, right? It's obviously not. Nobody's trying to suggest that it's true. But there are truths within the story, so you can read the story and learn, even though none of it is actually, it's not talking about true factual things that happened in the past, right? You can read that story and learn things which are true, because Dostoevsky is a brilliant writer, and this is how literature can teach us things. And so he's suggesting that the Bible can be true in that way, okay? And Dawkins is saying, well, no, that's not what I'm going after scientific truth. But and Peterson is probably going to reply that that's not the only kind of truth or something like that. But I mean, they're both missing the point here, I would say. But anyway,
whether one writer of fiction has a sort of insight into human nature, that goes without saying. I accept that.
Okay, so how do we deal with the notion that on the purely factual side, how do we deal with the idea? Let's take you talked about clitoridectomy. Let's talk about the oppression of women.
Yes.
We make a scientific case that that's inappropriate, or is it a case that we're making on some other grounds? Like I see in the Judeo-Christian tradition, one of the earliest.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. This is kind of what Jason was touching on too. The problem with atheism is there's no moral values. And now Peterson's touching on that too. Is there some scientific reason why women and men should be equal in society or something like that? You know what I mean? Or even the races or whatever, right? Why should we be equal? What does that even mean, equal, right? And is that scientifically testable, verifiable, or anything, right? So I guess kind of what I don't know why they're actually debating or what exactly they're debating, or discussing, but right now I would say the fact that they're kind of almost talking past each other, because Peterson is trying to say that there's values and things which are not determinable by science, and then Richard Dawkins is trying to say that science is the only way to truth or something, you know. But yeah, the idea that you can the problem with atheism having no moral values, that's what I brought my professor on here the other day to talk about. And yeah, I mean, they just try to assume that there can be values even without atheism, but why would we think that? And how would you determine that? And then they try to say that anyway. It's so dumb. Anyway, let's hear what they say.
It is that both men and women carry the image of God, both. And that sets a certain tone to everything that follows. And it is a remarkable proclamation, given its radical age, that both men and women carry the image of God and are to be treated as something with intrinsic value outside of the domain of power and politics. And it isn't obvious to me, having thought about this a lot, how we deal with that in the pure realm of fact. Because one of the facts is, if I can oppress you, why the hell shouldn't I?
Yeah, my job is to keep things on track here. I think there are a number of questions which Professor Dawkins has asked quite directly that we still haven't really heard an answer for.
Okay.
And Professor Dawkins asking about the virgin birth.
All right, let's hear this. So Dawkins asked some direct questions that Peterson's running. So what is the debate here? I don't know. Has anybody watched the whole thing? Because I guess they're trying to debate something about whether Christianity is true or the value of the Bible or something. But Jordan Peterson doesn't believe the Bible is true. He just thinks that it's got some kind of value for our society or something like that. So what he's basically kind of supporting is liberal theology. Where liberal theology is this thing where they believe in Christianity or something, but they don't believe the Bible is true, and they don't believe like necessarily you have to hold to all the things of Christianity. It's more about Enlightenment values, but they think that Christianity has value as well. So this is kind of what Jordan Peterson is putting forward. It's also like other writers have done this, like Tolstoy, and you might say C.S. Lewis, but Jordan Peterson is like the latest reiteration of this way of thinking.
You started talking about metaphor, you started talking about myth. I think anybody listening to this conversation will understand that maybe a society that doesn't believe in the virgin birth won't work. Maybe that's the predictive power that you're talking about. But I think you must understand that when Professor Dawkins is asking you, do you believe that Jesus was born of a virgin? He means something like a biological fact. And by the way, saying I don't know, or saying, you know, I'm not qualified to comment, is an answer to that question. But is that your answer, that you don't know?
I said earlier, and I would hold to this, is that there are elements of the text that I don't know how to, that I'm incapable of fully accounting for. I can't account for what the fundamental reality and significance of the notion of the resurrection is.
Look at this guy. Anyway, sorry.
Sure.
This guy's so like, he can't answer a simple question, you know, and this is how he always is. This is why I can't stand this guy. And for people who think that this guy's smart, I hope I can like disabuse you of that notion. He is far from it, okay? Or if he probably is pretty smart, but he's not teaching smart stuff when he comes in these stupid things and he talks like this. This is not smart. This is not informative. What he's doing is just talking around. He's not saying anything useful. He's using lots of big words. And maybe you can improve your vocabulary by listening to this. But you will not actually improve, like learn anything. What he's doing right now, he's saying like he will not actually answer the question. The question is, do you believe that Jesus Christ was born of a virgin? He cannot answer this question. He refuses to answer the question. And Alex O'Connor, that young guy, Alex O'Connor has asked him this question multiple times now. Richard Dawkins has asked him multiple times. He will not answer. He's just dilly-dallying and giving the runaround and all this stuff. This is all he ever does. He's not an intellectual, man. He's a yapper. He's a talker. And this is what he's employed by his handlers to do, because that's what they need him to do.
I can't account for what the fundamental reality and significance of the notion of the resurrection is. My knowledge just ends.
Sure, but
I know that whatever happened as a consequence of the origination and the promotion of the Christian story was powerful enough to bring Rome to its knees and demolish the pagan enterprise. So there's some power.
Okay, so now he's saying that, okay, Christianity brought Rome to its knees, demolished the pagans. And so there's something there, but he won't take the leap, or shall we say, bite the bullet and just say, okay, I do believe that Jesus is God. Because why did Christianity change the world? Why did Christianity take over the Roman Empire? You know, it's a little religion from this tiny little backwater of the Roman Empire, right? Where they're always fighting the Romans. The Romans hated them. But somehow this religion from the Jews, from one guy who's penniless, who never wrote a single book or anything, somehow that religion takes over the whole Roman Empire and then takes over the world and becomes the most popular religion of all time. Why? How? Why? You know? Jews will say, well, there's something special about Jews, and so their religion happened to do this. But I mean, the thing that's special about them is they're the chosen people.
Power in that story that's remarkable.
Let's stick to the virgin birth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, well, the virgin birth results from a mistranslation of Isaiah. You know that.
Like these sorts of
Wait, what do you say?
and demolish the pagan enterprise. So there's some power in that story that's remarkable.
Let's stick to the virgin birth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, well, the virgin birth results from a mistranslation of Isaiah. You know that.
Like these sorts.
A mistranslation of Isaiah. Wow, dude. So foolish. I mean, I guess it's dumb. Like, you know, like this is what they do. So if we go up to them and try to say that, you know, by the way, evolution doesn't make a lot of sense because of this, this, and this, right? They'll start saying, oh, no, you're not experts in evolution. You're not, you know, you're not this, you're not that, right? But then when they try to say things like that, he's acting like he's an expert in Hebrew and all this stuff. But there's a debate about that word, right? The word that they use for virgin in Isaiah 7, behold, a virgin shall, what is it? Behold, a virgin shall be with child or something. So that verse, right? It says virgin there, but the word in Hebrew can be translated as young woman rather than virgin. So some people have suggested that it's not really saying a virgin, but a young woman. But it is saying virgin. I mean, the word is never used about a married woman in the Bible. It's always used about young unmarried women. And young unmarried women in the Bible are assumed to be virgins unless otherwise, you know, unless we know otherwise, they're assumed to be virgins. That's just the way it is, you know, because that's how the Bible culture was. If you're not married, you're not having sex. So that's why they call them that, you know. Anyway.
It's remarkable.
Let's stick to the virgin birth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, well, the virgin birth results from a mistranslation of Isaiah. You know that.
Like these sorts of questions. What would you say? They don't strike me as. They're not getting to the point.
I know
The
that. I
story
know you
has a
think
purpose.
that. Yes.
Well, and look, I understand that there's perfect reasons to debate this. I know that, and I know that your question is more than valid, but it's beside the issue as far as I'm concerned, and it's partly because, well, when we started this conversation, I said, for example, that it appears to be the case that a description of the structure through which we see the world is a story. We see the world through a story. And so that's a remarkable thing. That's a remarkable discovery, and it's emerged probably.
Dude, wow, this guy always, his life, his whole worldview, everything he says is based on dumb things like that. We see the world through a story, you know, because like, it's true, there is scientific evidence of this. Like this, it seems like humans almost kind of can't think of things in any other way, but in a story kind of way, like a thing has a beginning and an end, and there's some kind of thing in between, you know. That's almost, we almost think of everything in that way. So that's somewhat true, and that's been studied, that's been discussed, you know. And now he's trying to suggest that that's some reason why, or that's significant to this discussion, which it is, but not in the way he thinks. Like, he's just trying to, basically what he's trying to do is support the Bible without supporting God, without even resorting to God. Just that the Bible is good, even if you don't believe in God, the Bible is good. And so he's trying to go to this thing about the story, and then before it was like whatever, like, I don't know, the virgin, I don't know, it's so dumb. This is foolishness. Anyway. Oh, sorry.
In the last 60 years in multiple disciplines, because we have to prioritize our facts. And so we prioritize them according to a particular pattern. And there are patterns that seem to work and to propagate themselves properly and to orient cultures towards life abundant. And there are other patterns, the pattern of Cain, for example, that lead to absolute bloody devastation. And I don't know exactly how to construe that sort of truth. But we talked about the oppression of women, for example. It's like, how do you make a case on purely factual grounds that women should be treated as equals?
It's a moral question, and
I know that's exactly.
I was
exactly. It's a moral question, Dawkins. So, So, like, what's his name? Peterson's asking him, how do you make the case for equality between men and women, purely based on facts, right? That is based on scientifically verifiable facts. Like how Dawkins is trying to say all he cares about is science. Well, and then Peterson is trying to say, well, how do you settle these moral questions with science, right? And then this guy, he's playing dumb now, you know. So they're both kind of playing dumb back and forth. That's what's dumb about this, anyway.
It's a moral question, and
I know that's exactly.
I was dealing with a factual question, which is, did Jesus have a father?
Yeah, did Jesus have a father? Okay, and yes, he did, and his father is God. Okay. But the point is, though, you're trying to deal with this factual thing as if, okay, if there's no facts to be proven, if we can't prove anything about the Jesus story, then I guess we should abandon it and just move on and live our lives. And Peterson's trying to say, well, okay, I don't know if I can prove it or not, but the fact is, there's something there that has benefited our society and in terms of morality and other things like that. And Dawkins is just like being like, so this is what I'm saying. They're both playing dumb against each other, you know, but at least Peterson is being a little bit more honest, I would say. But they're both idiots. I think they're both shills.
And you won't answer it.
Well,
it's
Jesus
a different kind of question.
Father and a heavenly father, like almost all mythological heroes.
So he wasn't born of a virgin then. So you're saying that Jesus was not born of a virgin.
Oh, wait, what did you say?
Father and a heavenly father.
And you won't answer it.
Well,
it's a factual question, which is, did Jesus have a father? And you won't answer it.
Well,
it's a different kind of question.
Father and a heavenly father, like almost all mythological heroes.
Oh, so now he's trying to say Jesus had an earthly father and a heavenly father, like all the mythological heroes. Yeah, which is exactly what you're saying, JH. It's exactly what you're saying. That's what they're saying now. I think you were more talking about Dawkins. I'm not sure, but they're both on the same page. They're trying to reduce the Bible to, yeah, something like that, some kind of mythic thing that humans came up with. And then they're trying to say, and then Jordan Peterson is trying to say, well, it's the best of those mythopoetic things that human cultures grow out of. It's the best one, and it's the one we should stick with because it's worked the best. And Dawkins is saying, well, okay, maybe all societies grow out of these mythopoetic things, and maybe Christianity was the best one, but now it's time to move on. You know, we have reason, we have science, right? So that's the kind of debate, I guess.
Heroes.
So he wasn't born of a virgin then. So you're saying that Jesus was not born of a virgin.
I said, first of all, that I don't know how to mediate the fact-value dichotomy in that case. I said the same thing about the resurrection.
It's not a value. It's a simple fact. I mean,
wait,
so you're saying that Jesus was not born of a virgin.
I said, first of all, that I don't know how to mediate the fact-value dichotomy in that case. I said the same thing about the resurrection.
It's not a value.
I don't know how to mediate the fact-value dichotomy. This is what he said. This is what people do. When people can't answer your simple question and they come up with some stupid thing like that. I don't know how to mediate the fact value dichotomy between those two answers. That's them trying to not say simply what the truth is, well, like the truth of their end. They don't want to admit what they know, or they don't want to admit they don't know or something. So they're saying that. That's what this guy's doing. Mediate
the fact value dichotomy in that case. I said the same thing about the resurrection.
It's not a value. It's a simple fact. I mean, did a man have intercourse with Mary and produce Jesus? That's a factual question. It's not a value question.
You must understand what you're being asked here. That even
it's somewhat of a value question, because if you say no, you're denying the Christian faith, right? So you're denying those values. And if you say yes, that he was not born of a virgin, that you're denying the Christian faith, so you're denying those values. That's why Jordan Peterson doesn't want to bite the bullet, and that's why. And Dawkins, but on the other side, and Jordan Peterson's not doing a good job of holding his feet to the fire, because the fact is Dawkins can't answer that other question, the values question. Where do we get values in a society without God? Why do we have this value to not to like treat women with equality, or to not just take things from weak people? It's because of the Bible.
And if you think that, say, the author of the biblical texts intended much more significance than a simple scientific analysis of events, Professor Dawkins is interested in scientific truth. That's the kind of truth that he's interested in. And even if you think it's irrelevant to the point of what the gospel authors were getting at, that first needs to be clarified before you can then begin actually uncovering what the stories are about. So I think Professor Dawkins is asking from a scientific perspective. And maybe you think that scientific approach is wrong. But if you just take it for a moment, maybe this is how we find out that it is wrong. Let's take a scientific approach. Ask the question, did this occur?
I think that it's inappropriate to use a question like that to attempt to undermine the validity of the entire, what would you say, deep mythological enterprise.
Well, suppose we weren't doing
foolish.
That. So what he wants to do is say, well, the thing is, Peterson's like being wishy-washy. They're both kind of riding the fence here, because Peterson's saying, I think of it as a myth. I think of the Bible as a myth, but I don't want to admit that it's just a myth and that Jesus was born of a man, right? He doesn't want to admit. He doesn't want to go that far. And then Dawkins is saying, yeah, it's absolutely a myth. Jesus was born of a man, but he won't bite the bullet and say, okay, there's no real reason to treat women equally to men or anything else or anyone else. There's no reason to have any morals whatsoever if there's no God. That's what he won't admit it.
Suppose we were asking out of interest. Suppose that we were all here devout Christians, maybe even Jungian Christians, and we thought, this is interesting, over dinner. Do you think it really happened, like scientifically? Would your answer just be, I don't know?
Yes.
And you wouldn't consider it, I mean, it's not an inappropriate question to ask, just on a point of interest.
Right.
Did this really occur? And I think so often people are asking you that, and especially given the context of this conversation, we've heard everything that you're saying about metaphor and myth, but because the question is still then being asked, did it really happen? You know that that's what you're being asked. And the way you just so easily said yes, I wonder why you struggle to do that in so many other circumstances.
I think because I don't look at the situation the same. The way that Dr. Dawkins and I look at the situation are really quite different, and at many, many, many levels. So even on the meme question, for example, like I know the literature on the history of religious.
Actually, they're not that different. They're kind of the same. They're both kind of basically like liberal Christians. Like they accept the values of Christianity. I mean, to a certain extent, right? They're not going to say they think abortion's okay and stuff like that, but they accept the values such as human equality and like don't steal. I don't know, like there's lots, like don't have like female genital mutilation and stuff like that, right? These are Christian values, right? So they will both accept those values. There's no reason for atheism to have those values, and there's no reason from some other worldview, So they're both kind of liberal Christians in that sense, but neither of them really believe the Bible. Peterson is more what you would call a classic liberal Christian, and Dawkins is saying, "Oh, I'm an atheist. I'm not a Christian," but he still holds to the Christian values. So he's basically a liberal, man, in my opinion.
Ideas. I see how these ideas have battled across millennia in a manner that is very reminiscent to me of the same sort of claim that Dr. Dawkins is putting forward with regards to meme. I know that literature. Dr. Dawkins doesn't know that literature. And it's very difficult for me to communicate to me. Ideas have battled across millennia, for example, you know, like I know that Dawkins and I look at the situation are really quite different and at many, many, many levels. You know, so even on the meme question, for example, you know, like I know the literature on the history of religious ideas. I see how these ideas have battled across millennia in a manner that is very reminiscent to me of the same sort of claim that Dr. Dawkins is putting forward with regards to meme. I know that literature. Dr. Dawkins doesn't know that literature. And it's very difficult for me to communicate from within the confines of that literature because it's extensive and deep. And we're dealing with things that we don't understand the relationship between metaphoric truth and value predicated truth and factual truth. We don't understand that. It's a big problem.
So oh man, this is complicated. So what he's trying to say now is that there's three kinds of truth. There's metaphorical truth. So the Bible teaches some kind of metaphorical truth. So like the notion that Jesus was born of a virgin is probably in Peterson, what he's trying to get at is that it's kind of metaphorical, not really a factual thing, but that there's some kind of truth there that the Bible is trying to give us, and that's valuable. That truth, whatever that is valuable. It's not true. It's not factually true that he was born of a virgin, but it's true in some sense, and we should take in that truth and learn from it. That's what he's saying when he says metaphorical truth. And what does he say?
That we don't understand the relationship between metaphoric truth and value predicated truth and factual truth.
Value predicated truth. So that's your moral values, right? That we're talking about how you can't get morals without a God type of thing. So that's what he's saying. That's the value predicated truth. And then he said, I think factual truth or something.
Relationship between metaphoric truth and value predicated truth and factual truth. We don't understand that. It's a big problem. We cannot, there's no evidence whatsoever from the scientific perspective that we can orient ourselves in the world merely in consequence of the facts.
Sure.
And that's a fact. And it's a fact that's been.
That's true too. So that's the thing that my friend the other day when he was here, my professor friend, he wouldn't admit this, right? But what Peterson's saying, and what Alex O'Connor admits as well, is that without a God, you just don't have any basis for moral reasoning, you know? Well, let's see what they say.
Merely in consequence of the facts. Scientific perspective that we can orient ourselves in the world merely in consequence of the facts.
Sure.
And that's a fact. And it's a fact that's been detailed out in great detail in the last 60 years by people from a variety of different disciplines. We have to prioritize the facts. That's a value hierarchy. There may be true and false ways of prioritizing facts, but you can't determine the truth or falsehood of the way that you prioritize facts by making reference to the facts. That's a big problem.
Okay, let's talk about that as perhaps a slight detour here, because I think we do need to come back to this Christ resurrection thing. But Professor Dawkins, would you say that underlying the scientific enterprise is a fundamentally unscientific assumption? You can make scientific investigations in the world, but in order to do so, you need to choose what to prioritize. You need to choose what to investigate. You also need to value the truth. You need to have a value and a motivation for doing it in the first place. Those kinds of things cannot themselves be scientifically justified. And so does the scientific enterprise have an unscientific assumption of the space?
I suppose it does. I mean, I think that maybe just be Jordan and Richard, by the way. I think that Jordan prioritizes myth and I prioritize fact. And
Jordan prioritizes myth and he prioritizes fact. Well, I don't know. That's kind of a myth, like simplistic way of breaking it down. But the fact is, Peterson is suggesting that there's some kind of value in these so-called mytho-poetic ways of seeing the world that they used to have back in the day. There's some value of that in producing a society with morals and that's civilized. And Dawkins is trying to say, no, the only thing we need are facts and reason.
And I prioritize fact. And I think myth is kind of vaguely interesting, but it's not the be-all and end-all of my life. I think it's...
Dude, why don't these guys like... Why? Look, I mean, Peterson and this guy, Alex O'Connor, right? They were just talking about why it's like you can't come up with morals without facts. Or, sorry. You can't come up with morals from just facts. Just if all you have are scientific facts, you can't come up with morals, right? And then Dawkins, he just goes... He just like that's just what that is a very skillful way of moving the conversation away from that thing that he can't deal with. The thing that he can't deal with, Dawkins, right? He can't deal with the fact that with his weird materialistic scientific worldview, you can't have morality, and that's the question that he has not answered yet, and he keeps trying to duck it. And just now, when these guys were kind of engaging it, then he comes in and sweeps in and changes the subject because that's what he doesn't want to deal with. Let's hear this again.
I think
scientific enterprises cannot themselves be value and motivated. You also need to value the truth. Right? You need to choose scientific investigation. Do need to.
So now O'Connor's going to ask this question of Dawkins, and Dawkins is going to watch how Dawkins skillfully just turns the conversation away so he doesn't have to deal with it.
Come back to this Christ resurrection thing, but Professor Dawkins, would you say that underlying the scientific enterprise is a fundamentally unscientific assumption? You can make scientific investigations in the world, but in order to do so, you need to choose what to prioritize. You need to choose what to investigate. You also need to value the truth. You need to have a value and a motivation for doing it in the first place. Those kinds of things cannot themselves be scientifically justified. And so does the scientific enterprise have an unscientific assumption of the space?
I suppose it does. I mean, I think that maybe just be Jordan and Richard, by the way.
Maybe just be Jordan and Richard. See, because he's like, Alex O'Connor came out with the thing. Because Peterson, obviously, because Peterson's just a rambler and his mind's just all over the place, right? So whenever he tries to kind of corner Dawkins, right, then Dawkins is easily able to just get out of it because Jordan Peterson is incompetent in that way. He cannot have a normal conversation. He just can't. And then now O'Connor, right? He's seeing everything that's going on. And so he's like, oh, okay. So let me just make this clear for you, Dawkins, what Peterson is trying to get at here, right? So he asked him the question in very plain terms. Okay, this is what we're getting at. Does science have this unscientific thing at its fundamental basis? Because you guys claim you have values like the truth and like are like trying to find the knowledge or whatever, but it's like, how do you decide what knowledge is more important than other knowledge? What are you going to investigate and what are you not going to investigate? These are all value judgments, right? And so that's why. So O'Connor put it. Alex O'Connor put it the question to this guy very plainly, and then what Dawkins does he goes, oh yeah, I suppose we do, but let's just keep this conversation between me and Peterson, right? First he says that, then he changes the subject. This is how these guys are very slick. They're very, very slick, you know. But listen to this one more time.
Those kinds of things cannot themselves be scientifically justified. And so does the scientific enterprise have an unscientific assumption of the space?
I suppose it does. I mean, I think that maybe just be Jordan and Richard, by the way.
See, I suppose it does. But then let me just change the subject. Let's just keep it between me and Jordan. Just stay out of this, Alex. Stay out of this, young man. You're not smart enough to keep up with us here. But really, all that's going on here is that Alex O'Connor cornered him, got him with a question that he doesn't know how to answer, and he really cannot answer. And now he's trying to slickly get out of it and still look like a brainiac, but he's not. He's just like, if he tried to answer the question that Alex O'Connor just asked him, he would look stupid. This is why he can't answer it. This is why he's trying to get around it.
It does. I mean, I think that maybe just be Jordan and Richard, by the way. I think that Jordan prioritizes.
That is cold. See what he just did there? Wait, you know how rude that is? He's like, oh, maybe this is me and Jordan. Like your question is not important here. We're just gonna let's keep it between us. You're just like a little like piece of furniture in this room. You're not useful to the conversation.
I think that Jordan prioritizes myth and I prioritize fact. And I think myth is kind of vaguely interesting, but it's not the be-all and end-all of my life. I think it's somewhat secondary to...
Refuses to answer the question. See, Alex O'Connor gave him a very simple question, and he just refuses. Oh, I suppose it does, but let me just talk to Jordan here. And then he changed the subject. Now he's changing the subject. He's completely ignored the question that Alex O'Connor just posed to him, right? Because that's how, and the thing is, Peterson does the same thing. When they ask him, remember when he was asking him about the virgin birth, he's like, oh, I don't know if we can distinguish between the truth value of the verifiable. Like shut up, man.
Scientific fact, the sort of facts that tell us how old the universe is, how old the world is, the history of life.
By the way, it's not a scientific fact how old the Earth is or how old the universe is. It's a scientific fact that, you know, it's a scientific fact that, like, I don't know, the humans breathe oxygen. That's a scientific fact. We can test that. We know that. That's scientifically testable and determinable. Okay. The notion that the Earth is 2 billion years old, that's not scientifically testable in any way. All right. Neither is the age of the universe. That's all a bunch of nonsense. That's not scientific in any way. Okay. So when these people try to make those kind of claims, that's when you know how they're not real. They're not real scientists. They're not real academics. They're not real intellectuals. It's all fake. This whole system is fake.
Scientific fact, the sort of facts that tell us how old the universe is, how old the world is, the history of life, the engineering achievements of landing a spacecraft on a comet. These are the things that science can do. And as I said, the predictions of quantum theory.
These are the things that science can do. See, this is what I'm trying to say to you. This guy, this is the thing. They give these people like a platform to discuss their science as if it can literally do that. As if science can literally tell us the age of the Earth, the age of the universe, right? If you believe that, you're basically making science a kind of like a god. You're raising it up to that level, because the truth is humans don't have the ability to understand the origins of the human race. We don't have that scientific or any other we don't have the means to determine that. The only way we can determine that is if God tells us, you know? But when these people try to say science can tell us, what they're really saying is this science is God, you know? And this is his religion. This is his religion. He believes science can tell him the age of the Earth, the age of the universe. That's foolishness. There's no way science can do that. Science does not have the ability to do that. These people that believe it does, they are part of another false religion. It's the religion of science.
Craft on a comet. These are the things that science can do. And as I said, the predictions of quantum theory, to come back to that, the predictions of quantum theory, which are verified to a sufficient number of decimal.
But quantum theory is different than like general relativity, and those two theories contradict each other, right? So they can't both be true. Quantum theory and general relativity cannot both be true. They might both be wrong, but they can't both be true. They contradict each other. Okay, so he talks about outer space. We can see the age of the Earth, age of the universe, and all that stuff. That's general relativity and relativity and all. That's what that is, right? He talks about that as if that's fact, and then he comes back to the quantum theory as if that's fact. Now, quantum theory, you might say that's more testable and stuff. Okay, fair enough. But if that's the case, if that's the one you want to say is fact, then relativity is wrong, you know. But they don't want to admit that part, you know. So it's just foolishness. Don't believe these people.
Places that it's equivalent to predicting the width of North America to one hair's breadth. Now, that is, however difficult quantum theory is to understand, that is what you can get from quantum theory. Now, the mysteries of the Bible, if they are mysteries.
See, that's what we get from quantum theory. Can we get that from evolution theory? Can we get that from general relativity? No, we can't. That's the thing. That's what they won't admit. They'll talk to you all about evolution, all about outer space. They'll say all that stuff is real. That's science. That's proven. We proved it with science, you know, but none of that stuff is testable. Now, quantum physics is testable. So then he goes to that and he's like, look, quantum physics can test the width of the whole North America down to a hair's breadth. So science is like, it's the source of truth. But what he's not telling you is that evolution and outer space and stuff, they're not testable in the same way that quantum physics is. Not even close. Not even kind of. And that's what these people will never admit that. If you try to explain it to them, they'll just run away. You know, they'll start saying, "Oh, what do you think? The Earth is flat?" But what? Even if I don't think the Earth is flat, it still doesn't prove what you're claiming about the Earth, about the age of the Earth, or anything.
Aren't in the same league. I mean, they just don't cut it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was just aggravating.
Okay. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Studying the Bible with Mike, Sam, Pat. These other YouTubers are just so trash. Hit the thumbs up if you want to support. Go follow Mike as he follows the Lord. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 You better watch out, Mike's calling out the shields. If you're not free grace, you need to sit down and chill. We're not hyper grace, you know we keep it real. Eternally secure, you know that we're sealed. We don't back low, we're not workspace heretics. Mike's not in it for the money, trying to get a lick. They out here selling their souls for a couple clicks. Becoming Freemasons so they can't just get rich. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Shout out to Mike, Sam, Pat. Check out his channel, Toronto Bible Study. Subscribe and like.